This is a massive, massive market, one of the largest out there. 10% of consumers, they're now referring to ChatGPT as their search engine of choice. Perplexity queries are growing 25 to 30% month over month. My big idea is that the search monopoly, particularly around Google, is coming to an end. They control 90% of the market, but their grip is slipping. ChatGPT, Perplexity, all of these AI service providers, they're coming for them. There's a bit of an innovator's dilemma here for Google, and I'm excited to watch it play out.
Maybe start by setting the stage. So how big is the search market today?
The search market is enormous. Anyone listening to this uses search. Virtually anyone with the internet uses search. But to put some numbers around it, Google that I just mentioned, they're the biggest game in town. They're approaching 200 billion of revenue annually. They're still growing double digits, highly profitable. Microsoft Bing, which has been the number 2 player for a long time, mid-single digit market share, so pretty small. They have 12 billion of revenue. This is a massive, massive market, one of the largest out there.
Totally. And it does feel like there are forces reshaping this industry. So tell me about those.
So there's certainly AI, but before we jump into that, we can level set with the legal pressure that's mounting on Google. So earlier this year, Google was declared a monopoly. The court ruled that they're spending billions of dollars to phone manufacturers. In the case of Apple, tens of billions of dollars. Is monopolistic, it's anti-competitive, and it's preventing their competitors from gaining share in the marketplace. They are the default search engine on all these phone manufacturers, and it basically makes it impossible for any of the others to gain share. So the exciting technological change, of course, is around AI. The Gen AI search providers are fantastic. The market has been dominated by Google for close to 25 years at this point. And as a monopoly, they're not really innovating. They have no incentive to until now. If you think about the Google experience as it is today, it's just a long list of links. And the first few are sponsored. They're ads. And I, as a user, when I make a query on Google, I then need to make the decision. I have to sift through the information on that site and find the answer that I'm looking for. That's actually a pretty long process. Instead, with Gen AI, I can just get the answer. So on ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, or when I'm chatting with my AI friends on Character AI or on Poe, I get an answer immediately. And that's just a much, much better experience.
Totally. And I hear tons of people saying they're trying these new tools, but maybe you can give us a sense. Is this shift really stark? Like, are people really moving over?
People are definitely moving over, and I'd say there's 4 main reasons. One is the one we just talked about, the shift from links to answers. A second one would be how they are personalized, how the answers feel interactive, how they are conversational. The average query on one of these new services has a follow-up question. So it's not just about that initial engagement, it's about the ongoing conversation. The third difference is about how these new services engage with complex queries. So the average query on Perplexity is 10 to 11 words. The average search on Google is 2 to 3 keywords. As you can imagine, their ability to leverage that information and get you what you want is much higher. On Google, you're going to get a list of links. One of those links might have one side of the debate. Another link may have the other side. You may never make it to that second side. On Perplexity, on ChatGPT, they're going to synthesize both sides. They're going to give me both perspectives. And then the fourth, they're just not cluttered with ads. That may change over time. Putting it all together, it should be no surprise that these AI native services are gaining share. For 10% of consumers, they're now referring to ChatGPT as their search engine of choice. Perplexity queries are growing 25 to 30% month over month. And I saw a survey last week that 60% of consumers for purchase decisions in the last 30 days used a chatbot. All of these services are growing massively.
So if we look at some of the tools that exist today that are coming for that market share, you take a Perplexity or you take a ChatGPT, those are also broad-based search engines or chatbots. But there are these other players, you mentioned Consensus or Hebbia, for example, that are verticalized. Does it surprise you that the last wave of search engines weren't verticalized?
It does not surprise me that the last wave or the next wave will result in a winner take most dynamic. It's a pretty monopolistic market. Search is very much a distribution game. Google has an incredible brand. They have incredible direct traffic. They are the default search engine on most browsers. They are the Kleenex, the Band-Aid of online search. It's important to note that search engines definitely benefit from network effects. More users coming to Google provides more data around
Hmm.
preferences for Google. That means the next search has more relevance and brings more users. It also means more users means more advertisers, more
True.
profit dollars that you can invest back in the service or into ensuring that, Apple puts them as the default provider.
Absolutely. And so, as we think about this next AI wave, it sounds like you think maybe a similar dynamic might be at play. Or how do you think about maybe these smaller players actually finding a wedge or differentiating?
One framework for thinking about how search could fragment or verticalize is just looking at why does vertical software beat horizontal software in some cases. And it's typically the vertical requires a specific user interface, proprietary data, features, workflows, compliance, etc. And that's why Viva in life sciences and pharma can beat Salesforce in horizontal CRM. For the average query on ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Google, they're pretty good. You don't need a vertical specific application. But for deep domain research, I can imagine a world in which standalone apps thrive. In the case of our portfolio company, Hebbia, they have a unique interface. It kind of looks like a spreadsheet, which is native to financial services and their customers. It brings in public filings, earnings transcripts, but also private data. It can bring in research, it can bring in survey results. You can query, and then the output can also be specific to that industry. Not just look like a spreadsheet, but populate a meeting agenda so you can go in immediately prepared. And so when I think about vertical search or vertical apps, it's not just about the search, it's about everything around the search.
That's a good distinction. And as we think about how this maybe continues, the progression of this industry, if we go back to the last wave of search, we did see a bunch of search engines kind of get traction to start, maybe Alta Vista or Ask Jeeves,
We
and
all pick on Ask Jeeves.
all the Gen Zers will not know what the hell any of that is. But they had some traction, and then Google kind of exploded and took over. Do you expect that same kind of consolidation, or is this time different?
I think consolidation should be expected in general purpose search because of distribution, because of network effects. Google won the last time around in part because of their PageRank algorithm. It produced superior results. It had a minimalist UI. It was really simple. Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista, they had tons of ads. It was cluttered, links on the homepage. No one wanted to use it. The irony is that today, what we're all complaining about with Google is that their pages are cluttered with ads on the results, and that creates the opportunity for these new search engines. I would expect consolidation again.
And I think something else that's interesting is what you're pointing at with some of these verticalized solutions is that it's not just for the everyday consumer, but also, for the lawyer or for the academic researcher. Do you think that is also part of the fragmentation? Do you expect that to continue?
Search historically has been thought of as a consumer product, and for good reason. Like, I make a lot of searches that are related to my personal lives, but I use, as do all the professionals you named, search at work. I probably make more Google searches at work than I do around personal matters. But there is a category of enterprise search and a market that has existed. And you can think of that as querying Box, Dropbox, Salesforce all in one. But I think those two worlds are going to blend together. Consumer search should not just be limited to what's on the web, and enterprise search should
Mm.
not be limited to just proprietary data. It should have both. And a lot of these AI native services are working on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as we think about those two models maybe blending together, we think of consumer search for sure. It's always been an ad-based model, or at least today. Like Google is this massive economic engine, but no one's
Totally.
paying a subscription for that. The new entrants do seem to have a more subscription-based model. Is this a temporary thing, or how do you see those two dynamics playing?
So the subscriptions could stick around, but I think this is going to continue to be a digital advertising focused market. And I think digital advertising is going to grow because of these AI services. So these AI services today, they don't have ads. I imagine that's going to change. It's been in the news that Perplexity is already talking to advertisers. They have a high income, highly educated user base that should be attractive to these advertisers. But as we discussed earlier, the queries on these services, they're longer, they're more complex, they're more detailed, they're more personalized. And because of that, there's greater intent, which should be more helpful to advertisers in producing the best results on their end and creating an even larger market. But in the meantime, these subscription business models, they make a lot of sense. They bootstrap the business, they cover costs. And from a personal perspective, I'm very happy to pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Poe.
I mean, they provide so much value
A lot
that
more than $20 a month.
yes, yes. So obviously, this was your 2025 big idea, and I know this is going to be a many year, maybe even decade long progression. But what are you paying attention to in the next year? What opportunities are still on deck?
As I looked at 2025, Google it may be on decline, but I don't expect them to go down without a fight. Google and Meta, I think they can be big players. Google AI Overviews already has 1 billion monthly active users. Meta's not far behind. They have 500 million monthly active users. Again, this shows the power of distribution for search. And maybe to that end, Apple, if you could call them a dark horse, is a dark horse. They are not investing the capex like Meta and Google and Microsoft and Amazon, but they control a central node to the consumer. And if they wanted to build a search application, the next day they could have 1 billion users.